Welcome to Money Conversations with KJ. KJ is a lifelong entrepreneur who's made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and found his way back again. If you're looking for a sterile how-to, you're in the wrong place. KJ and his guests will walk you through real-life situations told by the people who live them, and they are as messy as they are inspiring. Each episode will offer lessons learned, advice on how to replicate successes and avoid pitfalls, and a new perspective to power your financial literacy. Far from a one-size-fits-all, this podcast can help you build a roadmap to your personal promised land. Milk and honey for some, whiskey and steak for others, and remind you that you're not alone on this journey.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the show. Today I've got a guest here, a friend of mine. He's a golf buddy. I met Tony, what has it been, Tony? 4, 5, 6 years?
Maybe a little bit longer.
Maybe a little longer, huh? Yeah. We play golf almost every week together.
Every week.
And I think he's got a really interesting story. Seems like he's got, I don't know his whole story, even though we've been playing golf and we're doing something really cool right now within the group and putting out these bios. But and you haven't put yours out yet.
No, I'm just do it last.
But anyway, I think you guys will get a kick out of him. He's in a really cool industry having to do with music and promoting. So that's always got to be a lot of fun. But I think we're going to hear his story of where he came from and how he's sitting. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. You know, we want to try to hopefully get some learning lessons out there to help some people, because I just truly believe that there are parallel stories for everybody, right? I've got listeners all over the world at this point, and somebody will definitely resonate with your story.
Okay.
So I generally start the show with the first question, which is, because we're talking about money, and I know sometimes money for some people is an uncomfortable conversation. Would you agree?
I definitely agree.
Right. And throughout the show, I talk to people why it's most likely uncomfortable, because it's usually you don't have money, you're uncomfortable talking about it, or if you do have money, you're uncomfortable talking about it, right? One way or the other, it's just uncomfortable when I'm trying to get people to talk about money, because that's how we can help each other, right? Like if you see somebody have success, you're like, hey, how'd you do that? Right? And as long as they share their stories, it's not about the dollar amounts, what we do. It's you know, how our dollar amounts grow or not grow. It's what we're actually doing. So the first question that I ask all the people that come on is, how old were you when mom and dad sat you down and taught you about money?
The interesting thing about it is I would have to say probably in my early years of high school.
So like you're a freshman, so you're like 15, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Right in that area.
Right in that area.
They actually sat you down and said, hey, Tony, you're 15 now, whatever. And because I believe that we all start using money around the ages of 5 to 7, when mom and dad are giving us $1 to go buy a burger or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we start understanding we trade something, right? Mom give you $1. You're like, I can trade it, go to McDonald's and get a burger or whatever, right? So subconsciously through conversation, I figure out that we really start to understand money about 5 to 7. So if mom and dad sat you down around 15, what did they actually teach you? Do you remember?
Well, my story is a little interesting. The conversation had to take place. Had to take place because going into my sophomore year in high school, I was about to go on tour with a major recording artist. And so, of course, you know, playing music at that age, now, you know, there's a salary structure or there's a money structure that's going to be involved in that, per diems and all those things.
Right.
And they weren't going to be on the road with me like that.
Right.
Because of their professions. So, you know, and then whoever my handler was at that time and so forth, we had to know what we were taking in, what was going out, how to maintain.
So what did they tell you? Do you remember the lessons?
Well, here's the thing. I don't remember the lessons verbatim, but what I do remember is, don't get stolen. Don't get taken.
Okay. All right. Don't let anybody rip you off.
Or don't spend more than you have to spend. Or try to conserve as much as you can, because you're going to be out there for a couple of weeks or a couple of months.
So be frugal.
Be very frugal.
Be frugal.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's your first memory of money, being frugal, and where you are today, has that carried? Well, I can answer that question. That's carried through your life.
Yeah.
As a frugal person.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know, and I'm sure you know, people who are the opposite. They spend every dime they get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you kind of wonder why you don't have money, right?
Right.
Any other money lessons that you started to learn? Because if you were basically thrusted into business at such an early age, right?
Right.
I'm sure when the money started to flow in, share with us like the excitement or the, scared. What did money do to your mindset when it actually started to flow in? Because you had the conversation before you actually made it. What mom and dad were trying to protect you, so to speak.
Right.
But then it started to flow in. What happened?
Well, I can tell you, being from the inner city Chicago.
Okay.
South Side, which is the best side, of course.
Right.
Money was. I won't say we struggled for everything that we had to obtain. But when we took in lumps of money or batches of money at times, I mean, honestly speaking, it was a major gift.
Okay.
So that for us, because we were although my mom was in a very formidable profession and my dad as well, still it was a major gift. So sometimes, in our younger years, when you get lumps of money, what are the first thing kids, that in my age bracket at that time, what would they want to do?
Oh, they want to go buy the newest, latest, greatest shoes, the clothing,
all of that,
all the, the toys, whatever, the games and whatnot. Yeah. The point is that you want to spend.
I want to spend.
Right.
Man.
Your mindset wasn't in the fact of, I want to save.
No.
Or I want to invest. Those words probably were so far from your mind.
They were there, but they weren't
important.
Yeah.
They weren't important, which is why it's totally normal. That's how, and again, we're pretty similar in age, that our generation younger, we're talking the 70s, that's how it kind of was, right? Mm-hmm. And parents didn't really sit us down and talk to us about how to structure money correctly, meaning saving correctly, saving for a purpose, thinking about your future with money, right? You got taught to be frugal so you didn't run out.
Right.
But if the lesson didn't go any further, you're like, well, you didn't really know what that meant.
No. And it's really interesting that, here's the thing, in the South Side of Chicago, you had different economical backgrounds.
Right.
So I was fortunate enough I went to a public school, grammar school, but high school I went to a Catholic school. So, we had the advantages there. But the thing is, regardless of the fact, it's just the lessons of our parents giving to us in regards to how to structure the money, the financial factor. It's a little bit different from, say, the suburban kid.
Right.
They may have had a similar path to try to explain how things went, but we still had the inner city teachings.
Well, at that age, right, our peers have a lot to do with what we do all the way around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes you hear the term keeping up with the Joneses. So if your friend got the latest, greatest shoe, you're like, dude, Bobby just got the greatest shoes. I got to go get those. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And that was the mindset, right? We wanted to keep up, so to speak. Right. You wanted to fit in. You want to be the cool kid or whatever. Right. At what point or how old do you think you were when you realized, well, I'm not making money just to spend money. I should probably do things with it.
Probably in that short period of time, like around 16. Okay, because mind you, I'm playing music. I'm playing with professionals. I have to stay in competition because first of all, I'm already looked at being the young kid. He's not going to be good at what he does, and so forth. So there were these drums. I'm not sure if you're familiar watching like old TV shows like Soul Train or things like American Bandstand or whatever.
Right.
They had this thing called Simmons drums. They were like an octagon-shaped drum. There was an electronic drum that could plug into a similar board like you have here. It's your board here. And those drums were $3,000
at that time. So, but that was the sound that people were listening to on the radio as the disco and all those things were going. So, I was the first person to get them in Chicago. So you had to save for them,
and they were $3,000.
So, how long did it take you to save that $3,000?
It took well
roughly. What do you think?
I would say maybe because of what I was doing, probably almost like 9 months, maybe. So, but I had to get them so that I can stay relevant into what was happening for recording sessions and things of that nature.
But think about, and I want the audience listening, think about what Tony had to do and what it did for him long term, right? Meaning, so getting those drums was a goal.
Yeah.
And the goal had a purpose.
Yeah.
And the purpose was, I want specific sound, right? Because it was the new sound coming out, and you wanted to be the new relevant hip dude,
Right.
or the group or whatever, to have this sound out there.
Right.
And so you had to have the discipline, right? If you can remember back when you knew you wanted them, you knew how much they cost, and then you knew how much money you were making. Did you casually save to the 3,000, or were you aggressively saving to the 3,000?
Well, fortunately,
I mean, 9 months is a chunk of time.
But with all the things that I wanted to do as a kid,
Right.
I was somewhat aggressively saving. Because going into the studio, I mean, I would just not to name drop, but when I go into the studio and have to do like a Burger King commercial, or a McDonald's commercial, whatever I was doing at the time,
right.
The musicians that were in Studio A and Studio B could be somebody like Maurice White in Earth, Wind & Fire, because that's where things were happening.
Right.
Or the other famous groups, and they were in these various different rooms, but they had all these things. And in order for me to be able to participate, I wanted to be in place.
So it's interesting, that story, because I often talk back about how we learn about money subconsciously. Meaning, I've shared with the audience that we learn subconsciously. Just if mom and dad don't sit us down and teach us about money, we learn from mom and dad subconsciously, meaning by watching.
Right.
And you learned a great gift of self-discipline, saving money for something specific at a real early age.
Right.
Has that really carried all the way through to your life today?
No, just like anybody else, I've had my ups and downs with that, situations where I could be very proud of, but then situations I'm not very proud of.
Right.
And that's because, again, without formally having the educational process.
Right. The financial education process.
Exactly. You fly by the seat of your pants.
So at what point, how old do you think you were, again, reflecting back, thinking, you know what, I got to take money more serious than I've been taking it? About how old do you think you were when you just reflected on that thought? Because it happens for all of us at an age, and I've got data showing approximately, but what was it for you, do you think? You're like, you know what, I got to take handling my money more serious.
Probably, probably in the early 20s.
Early 20s?
But did I do that? I can't say I did that.
You did that, yeah.
No.
So my research from all the I've had tons and tons of conversations. It's around 30 for most people. So if you did it in your early 20s, you did it early, reflecting. Meaning like, man, well, one, it sounds to me like you worked harder than the average 15 to 17-year-old anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At 15, 17, most kids are still in the streets playing with their buddies or whatever.
Right.
They're not even doing their side jobs yet. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And you were actually there working like an adult. So, so I guess making that money by the time you're 22 or 3, reflecting like, man, I've made a pretty good chunk of money in the last few years. What do I have to show for it?
That's the story. That's the story of our lives,
right?
These friends that not mind you, they were of course a group of friends that did things the way things should have been done.
Well, that brings up a good point, right? I always talk about most of us can learn by example, right? And so by you saying that, do you think your mindset shift with money may have happened based on you seeing other people handling their money different?
Yeah, the good and the bad.
The good and the bad.
The good and the bad. I have to commend those that whatever path they took to get to that point, I didn't ride that same path, so I have to commend them because they had a certain path that they took that I wish I would have known how to take.
Great question, right? That's why, hence, I mean, we both know, everybody knows that, I don't know, through your high school years anyway, very little financial education is taught in school.
No.
Probably more back when you and I were kids than today, especially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the problem is they want us to go to school, get good grades, so we can go out and get a job to make money, right?
Yeah.
And then they don't really tell you what to do other than, surface level, save your money, get a 401k or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so without learning the money game, it's no wonder just today alone, 64% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, right? And the only reason people live paycheck to paycheck is not because they don't make money. It's because they don't handle their money right.
Correctly.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
And that's my goal and my mission, to try to help people. Like, we need to learn how to play the money game.
Yeah.
It's just a game. It's a game like any other game we've played, whether it's golf or any other sport or board game or whatever. We have to know the rules. And then we need to know the fundamentals of any game if we're going to be any good at it.
Yeah.
But if we're not taught the fundamentals of money, which is what's called financial literacy, just the basics, which is what I teach, right? Mm-hmm. How can we expect people to get ahead?
Yeah.
Right? It's like driving the car blindfolded. You don't even know where you're going.
Yeah.
Right? And so how can you get where you're going when you don't know how you're blindfolded? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so these conversations are about listening to your journey, your path, and how you've changed. So retrospective, what would today's Tony tell the 22 or 25-year-old Tony if he could have talked to them about money?
Today's Tony would say, learn as much as you can. Take in as much information from a financial perspective that you can, because your consequences can be great if you don't.
Right.
You know, the world is changing. Obviously, from you and I, from being in high school up until now, just the way things move. How things are going into crypto and things that, those are other conversations that are, that not the today's youth can relate to more so than we can relate to.
Right.
We have it's a learned path for us.
Right.
For them, it's a second nature.
Right.
But I would tell the younger Tony to, if there are ways to educate yourself and take classes at that time, don't pass those up. Like if there's a curriculum you had to decide on, like in your college or your high school. Take those classes. Right. Dive into those classes. Learn that information so that 10 years from that point, because you can't, you tell your kid, I told you so, but they don't listen to you because you're the parent. But then when it happens, now they say, I should have done it that way.
Right.
Well,
2020 hindsight, right? Monday morning quarterback.
Period. If you can take financial classes, if you can take financial literacy classes, take those classes so that you are able to now pass that information on to your children and to their grandchildren and so forth.
Well said. And so you guys that are listening out there, one, I want to applaud you for even listening, because if you're listening to Money Conversations with KJ and you're hearing these stories, you're being proactive about learning.
Yeah.
Right. So kudos to you guys out there that are listening, because I have listeners everywhere and I have regular listeners that they want to learn.
Right.
Right. And that the issue is that most people don't even realize that they need to learn.
Yeah. Because
they're in habit mode, right?
Yeah.
They're in mindset mode, right? Mm-hmm. And that's part of what my course teaches, right? I start off with mindset. And until we start to learn how to think and act different with our time and our money, then you're going to be the statistic of, in today's world, 64% working paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, just so people understand, that's only the people that don't make enough money that live paycheck to paycheck. Because of the 64%, 25% of those people make up to $250,000 a year. So that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So there's people out there making $150,000 to $250,000 a year, which is a really nice living.
Right.
And they're living paycheck to paycheck, which means what? It means they're living beyond their means. They're just buying bigger houses, fancier cars, more vacations, and not actually putting their money to work.
What's that term on credit? Debt to income ratio.
Debt to income ratio is really bad.
Yeah.
So let's jump into, even though that was like the mid-late 70s when you were, thrust it in there, when do you remember someone explaining to you or you got your first credit card?
That's a gift and a curse factor for me.
Okay.
My first credit card came, I think, when most of people that went to school, college, they got it in college.
Right.
And I was one of the kids that took the credit card and abused it because you had this credit limit,
right? And
you wanted to go buy certain things. To mind you, I was in between the touring factor. It wasn't year round. It was like I still had to go to school. It was summertime and those type of things. So of course, in between the time, you have these. You can fill out the applications for these credit cards, and they came so easily.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, before you know it, that $3,000, because they weren't super big credit cards. They
right.
were $2,500.
$3,000.
Yeah, they were maxed out quickly.
Right. And quickly. Because no one ever sat people down to explain the credit card game and why you should and shouldn't use them. Right. I think it was the mindset for college kids. Like, I just got free money.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the furthest thing from free money.
Yeah.
So did you get caught in the trap like 90% of other, where you racked them up, couldn't pay them. Now your credit score, went in the tank and whatnot.
Yeah.
How do you perceive them today? What are your recommendations, and do you even use them today?
That's a two-sided question.
Okay.
It's a double-edged sword because to have them with their credit shows that there could be stability there. To have them and have most of the balance used on the credit card, it goes against your debt-to-income ratio. To have them for various different situations, for travel, for other things that you may want to try to acquire, they're almost a necessity. But the other side of it, once you have them and you use them, I guess the biggest thing is to be able to be diligent on making sure you pay the bill on time.
So would you classify, I hear the term all the time, credit cards are bad. What do you feel about that term?
For me, it's going to probably always be on the good side because, again, to come up, you're never going to lose that. We always want to have that. You always want to have that push or that help if you happen to need it.
Okay. So I want people to understand, they've probably heard me say before. I mean, when people use that phrase, credit cards are bad, I'm like, what are you talking about? A credit card is a piece of plastic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How you use that credit card is different, which makes you either responsible or irresponsible.
Yeah.
And if you're irresponsible, it's because no one ever taught you how and why you should use your credit card.
Right.
So I'll give them the quick lesson, and then we'll go to the next question. So I want you guys to understand, like Tony says, depending, you've heard of like Dave Ramsey, you know who he is, right?
Right.
Or Robert Kiyosaki or Susie Orman. These are all the gurus that everybody knows about money. And if you're a Dave Ramsey follower, he's 100% cut them up, don't use them, get rid of them. They're nothing but trouble.
Right.
You listen to a Robert Kiyosaki, he's like, I love them, use them, I leverage them, right? And Susie Orman just says, use them responsibly, right? She's not a fan, but she's using them responsibly. I'm in the middle of those guys, right? It seems through the conversations that I've had that we have to go through the bad to get to the good, meaning probably what you did and most, right? And I'm a victim. I won't say a victim. I'm in that same boat where same thing, racked them up, got in debt. Now we have to pay it off, which makes our life uncomfortable for a period of time, right? You got to tighten your belt and get these things paid off. I'm an advocate of them, especially in today's world. And this is 2023 because of fraud, right? We are paying with things out there in the world with cash, our debit card, or a credit card.
Right.
Credit card is OPM, other people's money.
Yeah.
If in fact you lose your wallet, you get mugged, whatever, and they steal your credit cards and go rack them up, that ain't your money.
Right.
The credit card companies are insured for that stuff. They take big losses annually on that stuff, but they're insured for that stuff. If you lose your wallet and you have just only cash and a debit card, you're a world of hurt because it's gone. It ain't coming back.
No.
Right? Whether you had $20 or $2,000 in your pocket, whatever the number is, and your debit card got wiped out, it's most of the time it's rarely 100% received back. Sometimes maybe 50 to 70% of that money will come back in your account, but it could take 30 to 60 to 90 days.
Right.
And if you're the type of person that's living paycheck to paycheck, what did that just do to your life?
Oh, you just
turn it upside down.
Upside down.
So I recommend, like to my kids, I'm like, you pay everything with your credit cards, and you pay your credit cards every time you get your paycheck. Not once a month, because stuff will always happen, and you'll be like, oh, I couldn't quite pay it off. I'll just pay 50% this time. And next thing you know, months go by, and then you're in credit card debt.
Right.
So I teach my kids the money you're going to spend anyway, the essentials, gas, food, anything that you're just spending your money on that normally you put cash or a debit card, use your credit card. But as soon as you get paid, pay that sucker off. And that's how we build credit also, right? And how do you feel? When did you get serious about your credit score? When did that whole credit game come into play? Like, I need to make sure my credit's good. How old do you think you were when that happened?
Oh, in the 20s.
In the 20s?
In the 20s, yeah.
And so did you covet the credit score, or did it matter to you, or?
I was one of the ones that did not covet it.
Okay.
And I think that a lot of that, again, has to do with the teaching factor.
Right.
If now, mind you, it came up in conversation. It came up around me. But you always the one that jumps off the ship
right
when you shouldn't be jumping off the ship at the time. And what I mean by that is the fact that you hear it, but you didn't take heed to it.
Yeah. I always say, you hear me, but you're not listening.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You hear me, but you're not listening.
Exactly.
Which is a huge difference. That's a whole other lesson that I love to teach. So since you got plunged into work early, talk to me about at what age, and I don't know if you did, but if you did, at what age did you get a mentor?
Mentor,
whether it was within the music business or life or any type of mentor.
I had a mentor early in age from the music business.
Okay.
Because of course, me coming into the music business at a young age, there's always an older guy that's trying to tell you, look, young buck, you need to do it this way.
Right.
Or this is what you shouldn't do it this way. So from a music perspective, it came early. From a financial perspective, not so much.
So that mentor who was just only mentoring you within the industry itself didn't give you any life mentoring lessons, money mentoring lessons. Just he stuck primarily to the industry that you're in.
It was mostly in the industry that I was in. If the mentoring structure came at all, they would say, you don't need to buy that, or you don't need to get this right now, or something like that. It wasn't in depth where they sat. We're looking at pen and paper. We're looking at book reports or any kind of statistics that will show us what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing in investment realm or in saving or financial realm. It was more. It was the layman's way of saying don't buy that or don't do that. It wasn't the educational process.
So have you found yourself either intentional mentoring or non-intentional mentoring to any youth?
Oh yeah.
And what type of mentoring do you do for
them? How about this? It's a elevated way of what that person did to me, but I'd be more specific because of the educational process as I got older it's a little bit more finite.
Okay.
Right? It was not the street version, like, look, don't buy this, don't buy that. But if it's a situation where I see something or I know something and I'm able to pass the information on to someone, whether I took the advice of it or not, but if I have the information I can pass on to someone and that I think there's a valid or relevant information, that's how I potentially would do it.
So intentional, has someone come to you and said, hey, Tone, man, I think you're a great guy. I would like to be, would you mind mentoring me a bit about the industry or life or anything? Did someone come to you directly, or how did you come around?
Yeah, a couple of young cats have come to me from never. It's really interesting. Never typically from a financial perspective. It's always more so an industry perspective.
Right.
Because the industry perspective, the younger kids that are not necessarily fine-tuned with finances, they're involved or intrigued with the industry.
Okay.
And so that part of it is where they're intrigued, the industry portion of it.
Well, the reason I ask is, there's a lot of people out there in whatever industry, and they want to learn more, and they'll go find an individual that they want to learn from, and they can ask, hey, will you mentor me in this, right? And I think when we become a mentor by choice or not by choice, because I don't know if you can remember the first time someone asked you and you probably got a little thrown back, like, holy mackerel, someone wants to learn from me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did it catch you off guard? And then you kind of take it serious. Like, man, the things I could say to this individual could be life-changing.
Yeah.
Either direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I always advocate for people out there, yes, get your mentors in your industry, whatever you're doing, but also get a mentor in life / your money. Because again, we know that for 99% of us, mom and dad didn't sit us down and teach us about money. We didn't take courses at school about money.
Right.
Therefore, if you're serious about your profession, whatever that may be, and I always say making money is the easy part in life. Because we get excited about making money in whatever industry, right? And that's and that's fun. And we've heard that. Make a living doing something you love to do, right? And then it's not work.
Right.
But that's only half the equation, right? I have to teach people our job really, when you get to be our age, right? You're like, if the sooner that we can get people to learn to make money, that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Right. Making the money is the easy part. Now, taking that money and making that money make money, because you and I and everybody, we can only work so much.
Right.
There's 24 hours in a day, and there are workaholics that'll work 12, 14, 16 or hours in a day. That's by choice. Most people only want to work at 8.
Right.
But money works 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
Right. And not always in an upward motion, downward motion, but on averages, if you put your money in the right vehicles, you're going to grow money. Right?
Yeah.
So we don't ever have to be without.
Yeah.
Right. Can you remember times in your life when you were broke?
Yeah.
Like I'm struggling to pay the light bill next week and it's due.
Yes.
Right. And that's a horrible feeling because it's in your gut. You're like, crap, I can't pay the rent or the light bill or whatever that bill is. It's due Friday. I don't get paid or it's due Wednesday. I don't get paid till Friday. What am I going to do? And then you got to go borrow money and just do the things that you got to do to make things work. But I'm trying to help people not ever get to that point.
Yeah.
Right. I explained that to my youngest daughter when she was 15. I go, I don't ever want you to experience that feeling, because it's not just being broke. It's an actual physical feeling. And some people have high anxiety about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You just really freak out.
Yeah.
And the best way not to put yourself in that position is by learning about money.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I totally agree.
Would you classify yourself today as a saver or a spender?
A little bit of both.
Well, which one's predominant? We all do both, but which one? Some people, again, you're frugal, but frugal doesn't necessarily mean you save a lot of your money. It just means you're not, wasting money.
I think, what? Spending on what? That's the key factor. It's not a question to you, but I'm just saying that's the question. Spending on what?
Right. So obviously we all have our necessities: food, shelter, clothing. Right. And spenders spend money just to spend. There are spendaholics, shopaholics.
Yeah.
We know this, right? Both sides, male and female. Just can't wait to make money and get to the store. I got to shop.
Yeah.
Right. It's no, that disease is no different than alcoholism.
The spending of money for me right now is more geared toward necessity. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, recently, from some health scenarios, I had to get some things under control. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of changed my lifestyle. So in order to change the lifestyle, you have to participate in all the vegetables and all the things and all the equipment that goes with that, and trying to maintain their health so that you can still spend money later on. So money's being spent all the time with that.
Right.
Money is being spent on what we like to do for our leisure every weekend.
Right.
We know those numbers.
Right.
So that's a necessary evil, because we're not basketball players. We're not young kid. We golf. It gives us a sense of whatever that sense is. So that's an expense. That's what I spend. A boys' trip. That's what we spend. But frivolous spending, no, not even close.
Right.
Not anymore. It's more of the necessity factor and what's going to make my latter years comfortable.
Okay.
I'm not the guy that the midlife crisis need to go out and get the Corvette type car type of guy. None of that. But I will tell you, when it comes to my health and eating, that's one thing. And then, of course, the equipment that we use to play what we play.
Right.
Okay, so I'm guilty.
We'll spend our dollars there.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, early you had set that goal to buy that drum set, right? Because it was going to do something for you.
Right.
I'm huge on goals and making sure that people know the difference between a goal and a dream, right?
Right.
And how are you, because to me, I would think, but we'll find out, setting that was a big goal in your life.
Yeah.
That was the largest at that point in time in your life, that expense, $3,000 for that drum set. Mm-hmm. That's a big goal. You did it in the amount of time you did it. Did that lesson resonate with you, that you've done that through your whole life? Like you'll set a goal on something, and whatever it is, do you time bound it, or do you not set goals anymore?
I set goals. Do I accomplish them all the time? No, but the point is to try to set them. Mm-hmm. I'm the guy. Remember the Franklin planners?
Yes.
Okay, so I was a Franklin Planner guy.
Okay.
And people around me at that time were Franklin Planner people. So of course, it forced you to create structure there.
So real quick, so people that are under 40 years old know what a Franklin Planner is. We didn't have the internet and the iPads and whatnot back then, and so today what we call it old school. We wrote everything down.
Right.
And the Franklin Planner was like a notebook that was calendared out basically day by day, and we would fill everything out. And in today's world, people use it using technology, same basic thing, but it's digital, right?
Digital now.
So just so people understand when he calls it that, right? What that is.
Yeah.
But anyway, so how long did you keep those? They were real popular. They were almost like a fad for a while.
Yeah,
right? Like you had to have one, or you were a dude who didn't know where you
I was that guy that had one when everybody else had one.
Okay.
And I had it and I rode the wave of it, just like the SkyTel or anything else. I rode the wave of it. I was the dummy. Now in that money thing, you remember when the phones, the video recorder was the front load.
Yep.
But before that it was the top load.
Yep.
And they used to cost $800.
Yeah.
I was the dummy that bought the one for $800. And then next year when the front load came out for $200.
Okay.
Okay. So that just goes to show you.
Right.
I spent then on things that I didn't necessarily need because it was the thing, and then all of a sudden next year it just hit me in the face because now it's $600 cheaper and it's the newest thing out.
Well, I mean, a lot of folks want. I mean, every time the new iPhone comes out, there's a line down the street to buy the darn thing, right?
Yeah. And it's the same phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the question with goals is writing them down. It's critical. Harvard's done a study that if we don't write our goals down, the people who do write the goals down earn 10 times more money. Just because they write them. Because we all think about our goals.
Right.
And our goal is XYZ and it's $X and I think I can get there. But you try to keep it in your head, right? And the fact of the matter is it's proven that the people who actually write them down and the people who can write their goals down daily, right, will earn 10 times more money.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I really advocate for people to, if you structured your life, because whatever people do for a living and you go to work, there's processes and procedures, right? If you treated your life the same way,
right,
process and procedures with goals and writing them down, that's all that is, you would be surprised how much your life will change.
Yeah.
Because you're living life for a purpose and not, I like to call it freewheeling, just like living off the seat of your pants kind of thing.
Writing it down is the key to success.
Yes, you must write them down, guys.
Yeah.
You must.
Yeah.
At what age did you start thinking about retirement? When you're like, you know what, I got to start thinking more serious. I'm getting to age whatever. What age do you think you started thinking about that?
I think from an ego perspective, I don't think about retirement, right? But I have to, and probably I would say in that area of 50, probably.
Okay.
But the reason I say that because anything that's dealing like I don't know if that's a crisis or not, but I don't want to look at it from the standpoint of getting old.
So let me ask you, right? I asked this question, like I'll be doing a workshop in about a month, and I always ask the question to the crowd: what age is retirement?
Being around my golf buddies, it's the age that you make it.
Okay.
One of our buddies worked 30 years in the industry and was able to retire. He and his wife were able to retire about 10 years ago. And he's 65 now. Okay. Some guys are still working in our age, but so it's really when you.
So I'm going to let you off the hook.
Okay.
Because it's a trick question.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, here's the reason why, right? We have all been programmed, and this has been happening for almost 100 years. We've all been programmed that retirement is an age. When in fact, retirement is not an age. Okay. How many people do you know who said, I retired and now I'm working over here? Meaning they retired from over here and now they went to go work over there. But they used the word retired because they put X amount of years in wherever, right? And they like to throw that term around. And I really, really dislike the term retirement because it seems to be an end.
Yeah.
It depicts an end.
You know what's funny, Kevin?
Right.
What's funny is that most of our friends they retired, but they're somewhere else.
Right. So I don't think people should strive to retire. Like I have to work 40 years and then retire.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's the wrong goal. right? The goal is to reach financial independence, right? And so I teach that. And what does that mean, right? If I tell you, when you're financially independent, that means when your money makes enough money to support your lifestyle. We're all different. This is not a one size fits all.
Right.
There's people out there. The guy you just described, a friend of ours, he lives on his pension. He lives comfortable. Is he a millionaire? No. Does he strive to be a millionaire? No. But is he living a comfortable lifestyle for him?
Right.
Yes, he is. Right. So there's people out there that can totally live on $2,000 or $3,000 a month and be totally happy.
Right.
And there's other people out there, and you and I both know these kind of folks. I need 25, 30 grand a month. I want the mansion. I want the new cars.
Right.
I want the vacations.
Right.
Until my money makes enough money to support that, I got to keep working.
Right.
So we're all different, and there is no right or wrong answer when I describe that. And so when I ask that question, it is a trick question. It's a mindset question.
Right.
It's like we shouldn't think that way.
Right.
If you started to think early in life, when you started to put money to work, that my objective is to my money to make enough money to support my lifestyle, that's when you win.
Yeah.
That's when you truly win. Talk about one of the big problems out there across the world is debt. Right? What are your feelings on it?
Debt is the devil.
Can be.
It can be.
Yeah.
And, I think it's never a positive connotation with it.
So there's two sides to that. Right? If I listen to a Dave Ramsey, and he's a spiritual guy, follows the Bible, that's what the Bible says, right? Do not be in debt under any man. Right? If I talk to and I listen to a Robert Kiyosaki, he's 180 of the spectrum. That man tells you get in as much debt as you can. Now, I like to describe to people there are two kinds of debt: good debt, bad debt. Dave Ramsey's going to tell you there's no such thing as good debt. But good debt is leveraged debt that makes you money, a.k.a. investing, which is what Robert Kiyosaki does, right? He's just constantly investing in more and more real estate.
Right.
So he's leveraged up the wazoo. He does not believe, and he doesn't want, he tells the audience, his audience, I am cash poor. I don't keep cash. Every dollar I get, I have to buy in my next property. And he wants to be in as much debt as he possibly can. Because one, we don't get taxed on debt. We get taxed on earned income, right? And so depending on where you're at, if you're a entrepreneur or a W-2 earner, meaning you have a job, right? Two total different mindsets. So I just like people to understand, you guys are out there listening, if you're the person that's trading time for money, you've got a job, and there's nothing wrong with that, then follow the Dave Ramsey, right? I'm going to be on his side on that one. Like zero debt. Don't do it. Debt is an anchor and a cancer. Right. It'll keep you down. It'll keep you sick, and you're never going to get ahead. Right. Or it's very difficult too. If you're an entrepreneur, different. Let's leverage, right? We have to learn how to leverage time. Yeah. Money. Right. Once you can master that art, and it's not easy to learn how to do that correctly. Right. But I won't get too much deeper in that because I invest, right? And so I know how to leverage correctly. Right. Based on that, how old were you when you started taking investing seriously? You're like, you know what? I'm making good money, or I have extra whatever. I need to put money to work. How old do you think you were when you did that? And what was that first investment?
And when you say investment, you mean like
you put money to work. You said I'm investing now, and we invest in you can invest in all kinds of things: real estate, the stock market. You could buy gold. You could, cars. Classic cars. People invest in those things because they become worth more value. Art is investing, right? You can invest in art. There's a lot of different ways we can grow our money. But for you, how old were you when it hit you like, you know what? I have money, and I can't just let it sit in the bank. I got to put it to work.
Probably in the early 30s, because it was more in the night clubbing, real estate type of thing at that time.
Was it because somebody introduced you? Hey, Tone, I got this great investment, man, and it's a $10,000 buy-in example, and we're going to get an ROI, a return on our investment of 12%. Do you want part of this action?
Actually, yeah. His name was Jimmy Gierzik.
to introduce you to something like that.
Yeah, his name was Jimmy Gierzik. He had a company called Gierzik Development, Gierzik Construction, and he was into buying old nightclubs, and refurbishing and selling them off. And so that's how I got into the nightclub business, right? And but he was the first. But he was the investment factor for him was obviously real estate, purchasing of property.
So how was that experience for you? Was it no problem, or were you like really nervous and scared to do it?
Nervous and scared to do it for me because
you work hard for your money.
Yeah, and then in nightclubs, in Chicago, from a standpoint of a person purchasing them, they only lasted 2 to 3 years, and then there was a turnover.
Yeah, they're fad.
They're fad. So to get into that, you had to be aggressive and find the proper person to purchase it had to move,
right,
or you would be stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
So from there, I mean, that's a specific. You knew somebody, put some money to work. Whatever you made's not important. Did you make money though?
I did, except toward the end. Because, I think I got in the beginning. I was one of those guys that got in and should have got out.
Oh.
And it stayed, and then it wasn't as popular.
Okay.
So we had to sit on things longer than necessary, that type of thing.
Did you open any type of traditional retirement accounts, IRAs, mutual funds?
Not at that time, no.
Have you since then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What made you open those? Who taught you about those? Or did you get proactive? You just
proactive.
You got proactive and said, I'm going to open those accounts. Because you tell me, it doesn't sound like you had the traditional job throughout your career.
Yeah, I've always
like you got a 401k and all of that.
Yeah, I everything that I did, it was kill what you eat. Eat what you kill.
Eat what you kill.
Yeah.
Okay. Which, you know what? And again, it's an entrepreneurial path, which is my path, right? I haven't had a boss in 35 years or whatever. It's not for everyone.
Right.
Because it is a roller coaster ride. Being an entrepreneur is a total roller coaster ride.
Yes.
You need a lot of self-discipline, right? You need to really have your goals figured out and how to achieve them, right? Yes. You need to map those things out to do that. People that are very want to play it safe, so to speak, go the route of a JOB.
Right.
I don't even like to say the word. I just always JOB. Just because I personally don't believe in them, you're stuck.
Yeah,
you're stuck. I don't want a ceiling on what I can make.
Exactly.
I told myself that when I was 22 or 3 years old. I'm like, no, you're not dictating how much I make. I dictate how much I make.
Yeah.
And all the endeavors that I've done over time. But well, I tell you what, it's been an interesting story. A path of not like most.
Right.
You know what I mean? We all know music industry is pretty tough.
Tough industry, bro.
Tough industry, right?
Yeah.
Rewarding. I'm sure you had your memory's got to be amazing.
My book would be telling.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The experiences. Right. So, would you say that entrepreneurs probably have? How do I want to phrase this? Can our experiences be a lot more enlightening than someone's experiences that just clocks in and out?
I think so. I think we have them beat.
We're experiencing life at a different level.
And we've embraced it, and so our story is very telling. I mean, I watched my mom and my dad get up and do the 9 to 5. Although my mom, more so than my dad, was on the more higher end of the spectrum in the job world. She was in the dental field, and but still, it was a 9 to 5.
How was your parents when you were going through your whole journey and staying in the industry and not buckling down and getting, like, hey, Tone, when are you going to get an actual job?
You already know what it is.
Yeah.
That what you just said and how you said it and with the fist on the table, it brought back memories.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. They were loving it when the successes were great for them. And I'm not saying they were being selfish in that matter. I'm just talking about they can see their son excelling in it. But then, the other side is when he's not excelling in it, or when the gigs weren't so popular, or the commercials weren't coming in as quick, or whatever the situations were, then, you're going to see that side, because they're our parents and they're supposed to be advocates for us.
Right. For sure. For sure. Well, dude, it's been really awesome. And I think the big takeaway here is if we're going to go down the route of you're going to be an entrepreneur, Tony had himself I can't imagine you have any regrets, really.
No.
Right. and I don't want anybody to have regrets. Enjoy your life. If you do the right things with money, you can have a job. And if you do the right things with money, enjoy yourself and not ever get in a predicament of the statistic that's out there today, 64% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, because it's a horrible feeling. I don't want anybody to experience it. And that's why I do what I do, right? I want to bring people out like you, come out, tell your story. I'm sure you've inspired some people out there today. And remember, guys, if you're on YouTube, do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. And for you guys on the podcast and platforms out there, do the same. Follow me. I got a lot more people coming out, and we'll get you guys on the next one.
My man.
Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Really enjoyed making all these episodes for you. Remember, we're just having conversations with people's journey with money, and the things they did right with it, the things that did wrong with it, and how did they really come about getting their mindset with money. So every episode's different. We all have a good takeaway from them. So do me a favor, hit the like button, smash the like button, and subscribe to my channel, because every episode that I do is going to be different, as all our journeys are different. So you guys take care, and we'll talk to you next week.